Hi everybody, can you hear me okay? Okay, good. This is a little different than what you've been seeing today, so I hope you enjoy it. I've got 15 minutes to talk about a topic I've studied for almost 30 years, so let's see how fast we can go. So we're going to talk about character. And mine might come out soon if we don't get the slide deck. There we go. There we go. Oh, it's the worn out button. This good. No? Thank you. Okay, so what is character? It's a big word. We've used it. We've used it a lot, but do we really know what it is? So here's the definition. Here's the pterodactyl version of the prior thought of what character is. This is what we've been given. So prior thought is character is something that we acquired when we were growing up. It's something that we were given. We don't have a lot of control over it. It's like personality plus how we were raised, right? What people told us. We created a worldview. So we created a view about the world that we now base everything on. So it's kind of like we weren't looking and all of a sudden we got this thing and it influences our decisions and how we run our lives. There's some new thought about this and there's a lot of new data about this to actually back it up. And the cool thing about this is the data over the last 5 to 10 years substantiates what a lot of us have known for a long time. It makes a difference in your business in particular if you hire for character. So new thought, character is intentional and chosen. So the combination of how you were raised and what you made of that, but how you choose to use that makes a huge difference. So there's choice and it's intentional, and you can actually change your character. So character, who you are, your worldview, how you are in the world, plus your skills, what you do. So it's the day-to-day skills. If you took a resume of one person, a resume of another, and the skills match up, the difference of the success of that organization will be in the character that that leader has. We can now prove that, by the way, it's not all fluffy. Equals the results, which we call the return on character. So that's a new return metric for you. So here you go. So the 4 moral principles of character. This is actually based on studies of 500 different places in the world that actually studied. They came up with 4 universal characteristics. First one is integrity. Why you care about this is integrity actually, if you have integrity on your team, it actually builds trust. Trust is huge. So integrity, and you can read that up there, you can see what integrity is, but what I like to call integrity is the continual alignment of word and action. And there's a key word there called continual, the continual alignment, which means that trust is always integrity is always going in and out. Integrity is something that you don't just get and then you have integrity and then you're good to go. Integrity is something you are constantly working on, constantly bringing back and forth into alignment. An alignment of word and action. Simple things like doing what you say, when you say you're going to do it. So integrity, why you care about that? It actually builds trust. The next piece, responsibility. Responsibility, why you care about that? It creates inspiration. Inspiration on the team. That's a huge one. So owning your personal choices, admitting mistakes and failures, which is often hard for leaders to do because it leaves you in a place of vulnerability. But it's one of the best things you can do to inspire your team. So heart. This is the other piece. There's 2 pieces here that I didn't make clear, so I apologize. There's 2 different pieces. You use your heart and your head. We sometimes call those the fast brain and the slow brain. So the fast brain is your intuition or your heart. We all have it, it's a matter of if we listen to it or not. The thing is, the key is, the best leaders rely on heart and head. So they rely on heart, their fast brain, quick, then they wait, they do their due diligence, and they use their head. That's the slow brain. And when you use fast brain plus slow brain, makes a really stable, often well-considered choice. So responsibility builds inspiration. On the hard side, on forgiveness, this is very, very important. Letting go of one's mistakes. This is where you build innovation. So think about this for a minute. If you have an organization where it's okay to make mistakes, the context of, it's okay, we're all going to make mistakes because we're innovating, that's how you innovate. Then if people are free to make mistakes, high trust, you're going to innovate much quicker, much better. Compassion. Compassion is the place where you retain your team. Compassion is the place where people want to come to work. Compassion is the place where people love their jobs. These 4 universal principles are the things that actually make out character. And we can now measure this and have measured it. So why do we care? I just went over some of that, right? Money. There's actually a financial piece to this. The return on assets for companies studied. They did a 2-year study. I'm basing this on a book called Return on Character by Fred Keel. There's a lot of other studies that I've studied. This is just one I recommend to you. I'm happy to give any of you that name. But it's Return on Character. Why do we care? The 2-year study they did on 121 CEOs. They found that the CEOs and the leaders who had what we called higher character delivered 5 times on the return on assets for their company. That was a return over the last 2 years of 9.35%. And that's a good number to have a high number in that one. And the low performing, the low character CEOs had 1.93% of return on assets. So that right there should tell you to pay attention to character. It is the key that makes a difference. Another reason we care, workforce engagement. People love to come to work when there's a leader who actually cares about what they do, who actually does develop them, who actually really does invest in the company. And quite often what we find in smaller organizations, a lot of startups, they're very focused on the tactical of getting things done. They're building a company. But if you pay attention to actually how you build that company with the people, it has been proven that those companies actually are much more successful. And it's a huge amount of money to rehire constantly. So the 3 habits of high character CEOs. Now, I'm going to make sure this is CEOs and executive team. CEOs are not successful without a clear, good, solid executive team as well that has character. The executive teams, the CEOs are responsible for people and performance, which is basically the vision, the strategy, making sure everything's happening. The executive team carries that out. So quite often the executive teams are the ones that are really creating that culture of accountability. So if you have a culture of accountability, the CEO and the executive team, whoever that might be, they need to be in alignment together. So the 3 habits, these are the things that you could consider this your takeaway, if there's anything you get from this at all, from my speaking, is this. How do you increase this? The empathy habit. So empathizing is paying attention to someone's actual feelings. Now again, this isn't fluffy. This is just getting out there with people and actually being aware and thinking about and listening to what someone cares about. And that's actually a lot easier than people think, but you have to practice it. So you practice empathizing. So it would sound like really stopping the talking and starting the listening. And that's really how people do that, is the empathizing with others really is a huge habit that you can create. And again, a habit is muscle memory. You have to do it, you have to do it, and you have to do it. You don't just get it and learn it. It has to be something that you do on a regular basis. That's how you can change it. The second one is the others first habit, which is very similar to empathizing in a way, but it's really looking at your business, looking at what you're doing, looking at your workforce, and saying, how are all of my decisions going to affect others before you're thinking about yourself? So in the research that was done, they called the CEOs that had high character, they called them virtuoso CEOs. And then the other CEOs that were not as successful, they called self-focused CEOs. So it would be really shocking to you to learn that a lot of those CEOs lied quite regularly, did not do what they said they would do, and the people on the team often felt like their needs were stepped over in order to fulfill for the leaders. So the others first habit, move me first to others first. It's very key. The third, the admitting your mistakes habit. This is the one that leaders don't really care for because, again, it creates vulnerability, and vulnerability is not something that leaders have been taught is really a powerful thing. They're not supposed to show the holes. Well, I can tell you as an executive coach, there's a lot of leaders who have a lot of holes and it's not safe to show them. So they come to us and we try to help them with those holes, those gaps in their learning. But if you show that, start owning up to your own mistakes, it's amazing the level of trust that happens on the team when you start admitting your own mistakes and having people learn that you're fallible just like they are. So, at Archer, this is why we do executive search and we do leadership training and coaching. And so this is why the due diligence in hiring leaders has a lot less to do with the skills. We can find the skills, anybody can do that. But what the key is that we found over the last 30 years, and I've owned the business 20 years, is due diligence in that hiring has to do with character. And we actually know how to assess it. And so the holistic approach, if you're looking at the business, when you look at their numbers and the performance of the business, you also want to look at who's leading the business. And is that person the right person now and in the future, or will you need to replace that person, change that person, develop that person? You can actually assess for character now. There are tools, we use a tool called Tilt 365, and we actually assess character. So what we've also found is that if you have a leader inside one of these organizations that you feel requires and could use some development, coaching is one way to do that, so we add that in with our searches. There you go. We're going backwards now. So, any questions?
Great job.
Yeah.